it's called the 20% entry pullback rule, right? So let's say that you're going long, right? And on your long, you're putting together how you're going to enter, right? So the strategy, the system, right? So for us in our Discord, we have a very simple system. We use the moon indicators, we use our RSIs, and volume is king. So what we look for is if we're going to go long, we look for very specific things to happen, right? And one of the things that we do is what we call a 2-hour trade, which is very simple. Is when the 2-hour RSI breaks above the 20 line, which is right there, which is right here. And when it breaks above the 20 line, right, we then incorporate that with a 4-hour breaking above the 20 line, right? So what you can see right here is where the 4-hour breaks above the 20, which is right here. And the 20 line is simply this peripheral line. So you see how you go up and down here? See how it says 20 right there? This is the 80. You see that? So when this breaks the 20, this basically lets us know that it's getting momentum and it's building momentum up, right? So what we like to do is there's always 1-2 moves. So the first move that we look for is the setting up of the trade. So here we can see the 2 and the 4-hour start to push here, right? That's the first move, right? So how things work is that once you have a first move, then you have a pullback, and then we have the main move, right? So there's always things called 1, 2, 3, right? So if there's a system called the Elliott waves, and the Elliott waves is basically like the wave 1 goes up, wave 2 is 50% pullback or more to 70, and then wave 3 is the biggest wave. So everything that most people do when they trade, they look for a breakout, a retest, and then they get in the next move. So really what you're doing here is you're just trading with the people that are, you know, the retail investors that are making their trades. So right here, when we have these 2 and the 4 hours break above, we have this trade that happens in here. We have a pullback. We have that second trade that happens in here. See? Pullback, and then we have that third move there. So that ends up being the big one there. Then on the next time this happens, we have the same thing happen here where it breaks above the 20 line, and then we have that move there. So we'll look at these two real quick here. I'm just looking at trade wise. So I'm not doing too bad here. We have our downward move, so we should be good. We're gonna let that run. Okay, so for us, we want momentum, so we need the 2-hour and the 4-hour. 2-hour break, 4-hour break right here. 2-hour break of the 20, 2-hour break of the 20. Now we need the 4-hour number. Here's your 4-hour. And then on this, here's your 4-hour break. And then here, we don't get a 4-hour break till here, you see? Doesn't get to the 20 till there. So the 2 hours first, the 4 hours second, 2 hour, 4 hours. So it breaks right there. So this is a trade that we will repeat, right? So if we're going to go long, we're going to wait for this trade to come to our attention, just like where we're at here, right? So once with the 2-hour breaks, you can see right here, we would then see the 4-hour break here, which is this push here. Then there's a pullback to that trade, and then there's the final part of that trade, right? So 1, 2, 3 waves. Now, once that trade's done, we go to the next one, right? Which is here. Here's the first 2-hour, and here's the 4-hour break. Now this one goes crazy, right? Now it has a 3 move too, right? So here's the first push up, the pullback, and then the next push right there. And that's kind of where they end that move. So the pullback, the last push, and now what we're waiting for here is another 20 break again, which is what we got in this section here, the pullback, and then we got the push up, the pull down, and third wave. So what we're actually in here is we're seeing the 4-hour push, the 4-hour pullback, and then the last move. So which means that once it goes through a 1, 2, 3, it's going to be exhausted. So most people have already made their trades. So right now, yeah, so now they're just all sitting around going, I wonder where it's going to go. So while they're doing that, they're waiting for their systems and structures to reset, right? So for us, that would be this. We would come back here and we would be waiting for the 2-hour to break the 20 line again. And then we would wait for the 4-hour to break the 20 line again. And then we would have another long position here, which is probably going to be this resetting coming down back over here somewhere. So more than likely, we're going to have a target here that this perforated line is going to basically continue on from this level here. And as this starts to drop, we're probably going to get entries around here, 30, 65 or something like that. And then we'll start this push down and then the breakout. So right now it's just in an exhausted state, right? So that's a strategy, right? So once you have this strategy, right, that we wait for the 2-hour to break through right here, we wait for the 4-hour, then we get a push, we get a pullback, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to mark these sections here where when we get these moves, just so that we can go back and kind of like analyze how we would enter these positions, because really what I want to show you here is being greedy on your entries is how you get better at your entries, right? Okay. So now this little area here, so I can find it, I'm just going to put a box here from the beginning to the end, and I'm just going to make that purple. All right, so this is our strategy, guys, inside this purple box, the 2-hour, the 4-hour, the 2-hour, the 4-hour. These two sections here. But what I'm talking to you guys here is I'm trying to tell you is we're going to go back, look here, and we're going to take a look at how to get these entries correct, which would be us moving down to a 10-minute time frame. So on the 10-minute time frame, you can see that these two sections here happen like this. So my very first entry would have been notified on the 2-hour, which was here, right? Once I get that notification, I then get the next notification, which is here, which tells me that the 4-hour is now going up, right? Now, most people would get in at this point here, and they would buy their entry and say, okay, I'm getting in here, and then that would be their entry point, which is okay. Based on our strategy, we're all right. Now, what I'm talking about is this, is that I would look at my entry point here that triggers off, and I would go back to see where if there was a lower point before that, which happens to be here. So what I would do here is, because I'm doing a pullback entry, meaning that I'm taking the possibility of a better entry with more profits, I would put my entry on this level here. Now, a lot of people would have took their entry a little bit higher up in here, and they would have got an entry on these candles somewhere in this area here. Now, the difference between my entry and their entry is about 2%, right? Now, depending on your leverage, depending on how you're doing, it's a big difference. I run 20 to 30x leverage, so that could be a difference of 20 to 40% in profits from those areas in that area. But what I'm trying to show you is that if you get your entry here and then you set your buy-in correctly down at this level, the next time that you have that move, you're turning that 2% pullback into gains, right? So even though if we're looking at this long position and I get in on this candle here, I possibly could have made 2.13%, 2% on that gain. If I'm doing 20x, that's 40% gains. But that was a tough 40%. Now, if I put my buy on the pullback, and I play my odds that way, see the difference of my 40% is actually here, right? See how much easier it is for me to make my money? I only have to go back to this level here, right? That's the level I have to go to make the same return. Where the guys who are getting in here off the call out, which would be somewhere in this level, they have to get to this level up here in order to be profitable. But by waiting on the pullback down here, I don't need that much volume to make money because I'm in this level here. Plus, if it goes up to their level, I just doubled my money. And if the volume has a better run, I can triple my money. So my one trade is worth 3 times their riskier trade. Okay? So that's kind of like understanding the 20% pullback. So now let's go check out the next one to see how that works out, right? Same scenario. We're going to start covering this because I think the money that people don't make are because they're getting into the trade at the wrong time. So here's your 4-hour trade, right? Same scenario again. It triggers off here, and we'll go into more detail. I'll make a better video on this. This is what's coming this week. But let's say that you get this candle triggered here. That means your entry is probably going to be somewhere in here. Now for me, I'm going to look at the pullback, and I can see that I have a pullback level of here. That was just by looking at my previous lines. So my entry would be set up more on this line here, right? Now what that means is on this trade here, they get to about 1.35%, right? My entry comes and hits, and my entry goes to 2% just on that first move, right? So I double my trade just by doing the 20% pullback or the correct pullback. But the beauty of this is it also allows me to get into this ability to stay in the trade. And now on the next pullback that we see down here, we're able to actually catch this massive run here. So this is why it's important to understand how to enter a trade properly. Like, look at how massive that is. So the trades, by doing that pullback, are going to allow you to get 2 to 3 to 4% bigger returns than pushing that trade on that first move. So that's what we're going to do. This week we're going to go over, make videos on this, so that way we can focus on getting the proper entry, or understanding that when you do the pullback entry, you end up making more money, guys. All right? So other than that, man, we're going to let this go. We're going to come back to these videos, and we're going to work on this week. We'll start in the morning, probably about 10 a.m. tomorrow. We're going to start covering how to enter a trade properly, so that way you can double your profits on that. So that's something we can get into, and then we'll start that over. All right, guys, don't forget to follow. If you have any information, you want to join check out the Discord or anything like that, or information on where to go, just check out the link in the bio, guys. Good luck. God bless. Have a great day, guys.